My name is Lily Chen. I grew up in a traditional Chinese household in London. My grandmother lived with us when I was young. She was small, wrinkled, and always smelled like jasmine and old paper. She'd tuck me in with lullabies and folklore. Her voice fragile, but certain. My favorite was always the legend of the red thread. She told me that every person is born with an invisible red string tied around their pinky finger. The other end is tied to the pinky of the person they're destined to love. No matter how far apart they are, the string will eventually bring them together. It's fate, she used to whisper. You can't run from it. When I was little, I thought it was beautiful, magical. As a teenager, I dismissed it as superstition, a fairy tale for lonely hearts. And as an adult, I forgot about it entirely until I opened that box. I was 26, working long hours as a junior curator at the British Museum of Asian Antiquities. The pay was terrible, the hours worse, but I loved it. Handling relics, researching forgotten histories, touching the past. It felt like stitching pieces of lost lives back together. A few months ago, we received a shipment from an excavation site in rural Henan, China. Artifacts salvaged from a temple that had been swallowed by a landslide decades ago. Most of it was the usual: stone carvings, incense holders, old scrolls. But one item stood out: a small bronze case, sealed shut, etched with unfamiliar symbols, sharp, deliberate, almost like claws. There was a note taped to the side, handwritten in shaky Mandarin. Do not open, cursed item. Store in isolation. My supervisor, Mark, laughed when he saw it. Every old culture has their version of haunted junk, Hidad said. He opened it on the spot. Inside was a red silk bracelet, coiled and knotted like a spool of thread. Unnaturally vibrant, like it had been dyed in blood. We logged it and stored it in a display box. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing a faint humming, like a lullaby carried on the wind. Then I dreamt. A woman suspended in the air, her body hanging by red threads, hundreds of them, stitched through her skin like marionette strings. Her head was bowed, hair covering her face. She whispered, in a voice that sounded like wind through bone, "You pulled the string." I woke up gasping, and there were bruises on my wrist, finger-shaped, like someone had grabbed me in my sleep. The next morning, we had a new employee join the department, Daniel. He was from Manchester, soft-spoken, sharp-witted, kind in a way that made your chest hurt. He loved old books and bad coffee and obscure jazz records. He'd been a folklore minor at university and had a quiet reverence for anything ancient. We connected immediately over our love of artifacts, our complicated families, even our mutual hatred of museum politics. He was thoughtful in ways that felt rare. He remembered how I took my tea. He noticed when I was quiet. I hadn't felt that seen in years. Within weeks, we were inseparable. Every moment felt easy, natural, like we had known each other in another life. One evening, as we left the museum together, I noticed something strange. A shimmer at the edge of my vision. A red string, thin as a hair, glowing faintly in the evening light. Tied to my pinky and connected to his. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. It was gone. But the next day it appeared again. And the day after that. I didn't say anything until he did. He pulled me aside in the library. "I see it too," he whispered. His voice cracked, like he'd been carrying the secret too long. That's when we began to dig. Into folklore, into archives, into anything we could find. At first, it was exhilarating. We were researchers chasing a mystery. We spent long nights combing through ancient manuscripts, cross-referencing myths. It felt like a puzzle only we could solve. My grandmother was the only one who took me seriously. When I told her, she went silent. Then she said, "You have to cut the thread before it binds your soul." "How?" I asked. She hung up. That night, Daniel kissed me, and the string pulsed. It tightened. After that, something shifted. Daniel became obsessive. At first, I thought it was just new love. But soon, it felt heavier. He began asking questions. Too many questions. About my whereabouts, my thoughts, my past. There was a need in his eyes, like a thirst that couldn't be quenched. The warm boy I had met was vanishing, replaced by someone colder, hungrier. I tried to leave once. The thread didn't snap. It dug in. A burning line opened across my finger. Blood, pain, and a whisper in my ear. Fate binds, fate bleeds. I dreamt again. The woman in the air had her face turned toward me. It was me, older, hollow-eyed, lips sewn shut with red thread. She mouthed, "Fate consumes." I returned to the museum. I found the case. Inside, written in barely visible ink on the bronze lining, "It chooses, not you." I took the thread home. I burned incense, drew protective circles. I read every ritual I could find, but the thread wouldn't burn. Daniel came to my apartment that night, only it wasn't him. His skin was pale, his eyes empty. His voice came from somewhere too deep. "We are bound. You are mine." He reached for me. I hit him with the case. Blood. Silence. I took the bracelet, lit a flame, poured salt, said the names I had memorized. The thread screamed. It hissed and twisted and finally burned. Daniel collapsed. When he awoke in the hospital, he didn't remember me, didn't remember anything. The thread was gone. I thought it was over. But last week, I stepped into the lift in my building. The doors started to close, and then they opened again. There was no one there. But something stepped inside. I could feel it. I pressed my floor. The door shut. The lift started moving, then stopped between levels. The lights flickered. A faint red thread curled around my pinky. I looked in the mirrored panel. She was behind me again. Me. Hollow. Smiling. It always finds the next knot.